Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley starts now.
Good morning. We are 48 hours away from the election and begin with two big questions right now. Knowing what we know now, which Democrats might be able to defeat a veteran Republican? And with early voting over, which side will benefit most? In studio, Carol Donovan, the chairwoman of the Dallas County Democratic Party on the left there, and Missy Shorey, chairwoman of the Dallas County Republican Party on the right. And joining the questioning, as always, Bud Kennedy from the Star-Telegram. Thanks for being here.
Good morning, Madam Chairman.
Good morning.
You guys are accurately on the right and left in our studio as well. Let's start realistically. Carol, you first. Realistically, which seats do you think you have your best chance in?
Well, I'm going to start with Beto. There is such an incredible amount of enthusiasm with that race, and I think you can't really tell with the polls all that much because you have most pollsters interviewing likely voters, and we have so many new voters that are coming out. We had as high a turnout this time in early voting as we did in most presidential elections. That's unprecedented.
Missy, what are you most confident about right now going into the last 48 hours?
I'm most confident in the fact that Republican voters, not only did we show up in historic numbers for the midterms, but we consistently show up very strong on election day. It's kind of the way we go about things. So we're feeling very good in that. Now, in terms of Carol's excitement about Beto, I think that's so sweet. But the reality is that Texas is a red state, and we are going to see Ted Cruz cross that line. The issue is just how large will that margin of victory be? Now, all that said, we are not, for a moment, when you ask about what we're confident in, I'm confident that the only way we win is if every single Republican voter gets out and votes. That's the only way to win.
Let's talk about the what's happening at Dallas County Elections Office. You both have teams down there examining the mail-in ballots, making sure that they're signed correctly, the application and the actual ballot are signed correctly. Carol, this question's for you. The process has not been transparent. It's ended up in court. There have been questions about it. A judge had to tell the county, to my understanding, to tell the county, which is run by Democrats, that Republicans can take notes in there to make sure that the same person isn't helping multiple people fill out ballots. I'm curious, why are we still having these problems again, 2 years later?
Well, and I would say that it wasn't so much of a matter of can somebody take notes as it was that the Republican members of the Signature Verification Committee were copying down voter information, which is private and confidential, and they're not allowed to do that.
But shouldn't they check and see whether Jason Whiteley helped fill out Carol and Missy and Bud and Larry and everybody else? Shouldn't they be able to check that and write that name down?
Well, unfortunately, that wasn't the extent of what they were doing, and many times there were objections about it, and the Republicans took it to court. They took it to court not once, but twice this week, and both times they lost.
Missy, do you want to add anything on this one?
I think that Carol and I couldn't disagree more. The unfortunate thing is that she's got to sit here and defend fraud. We do know, because we've seen it, I've seen it, that known vote harvesters are indeed back to harvesting again. And the worst thing is that, and we did win that in court, let's be very clear about that. The court has ordered that the Democrats in there do indeed need to allow to have people be able to vote and, be able to take their notes. Now, number two, that's the poll watchers. Number two, this is very important. We have 600 ballots cast in the 2016 election, certainly enough to sway an election, that were harvested. And we see the same harvester back at it again, and we know there are more. So my thing that I have to say is, we found out yesterday that the court won't allow a remedy. They will not interfere if they know that there's fraud going on. They say there's nothing we can do until after then. So I urge Republicans, you must vote. You must bring your friends. You must bring your friends who are like, I don't know about it. Maybe I'm not so keen about this guy or that guy. Because if not, we cannot offset this fraud that we know is happening.
Now, there's no proof of fraud yet. Let's be clear about that.
Right. No, we just have people who commit fraud in there doing the same behaviors again.
Let me ask you this. There are questions of it. I'm curious, too. Is the party going to challenge election results on Wednesday?
Hopefully we will be winning by a very solid margin, so it won't be necessary.
You know, I need to ask you both that. You know, the early voting, we know that some of the voters have a primary history, a party history. Democrats had an advantage about 34 to 27% last I saw, but 30% of the voters have no party history. Both of you, why do you think those are going to add to your margin, or why do you think those will help pull your local House members who, 4 or 5 of them are in close races? Why do you think it'll help pull them through?
I think it's going to help because these people are excited. They're so excited that they're voting for the first time. And this is a big deal. We're also seeing a lot more millennials that are coming out to vote than ever before. We are seeing very diverse crowds that are coming and standing in line and waiting in order to vote. And I want to point something out. I mean, I guess it's easy to say you win when you've lost, but the Republicans filed a request for a temporary restraining order. They asked the judge to stop the counting of the mail ballots. They asked the judge to sequester all the mail ballots. The judge pointed out, you've given me 15 ballots that you're concerned about, and there's 80,000. I'm not going to stop the entire electoral process over 15 ballots. Which
the judge did not grant that TRO that they were asking.
Did not. And not only did the judge not grant it, but when they tried it again the next day, the judge didn't grant it the next day.
Missy, you should say, why do you think that the voters with no history, why do you think they'll help pull some of these campaigns out?
Sure, and I'd be happy to address Cheryl's concerns as well. So, number one, we believe, listen to her answer. She just assumes because you're young, because you're of diverse background, that somehow that's going to be a Democrat. No, I would argue that people are waking up. We have record high unemployment, record high opportunity for women, people and minorities, people of all walks of life. So we are out there competing for those votes. One of the most exciting areas of our party has been the Minority Engagement Committee. Now yes, I'm sorry, bud.
Is the border and the caravan an effective issue in Dallas?
It's an unfortunate issue because you have literally an example where immigration has just fallen flat. You have a complete, utter disregard for the law, and this has got to stop. Now, let's talk about this more importantly. I just cannot leave it unchecked. You know, Carol, the TRO was brought only because there was no remedy. We do have people who, the reason that we only had
and TRO is temporary restraining order.
Yes, thank you, Jason. The reason that we only had about 17 at one point is because we weren't allowed to take notes, and neither were the people in there. Now the judge has ordered that notes be taken. It's like saying, I can't tell you there's an iceberg there because you don't have enough pieces of ice catching up. Trust me, we know there's a problem.
We've talked a lot about the mail-in ballots and other things as well, too. Thank you guys for coming in. Missy, Shorey, and Carol Donovan, good luck on Tuesday.
All right, thank you.
For a couple of weeks now, we've heard about problems at the polls, machines said to be changing votes, but the Secretary of State's office says the machines are fine. It urges voters just to slow it down and review their ballots before actually casting them. But the Texas Tribune looked a little deeper into this and discovered something else no one is really talking about. Let's go to Ross Ramsey right now in Austin, the co-founder and executive editor of the Texas Tribune. Good morning to you, Ross.
Good morning. How are you?
You know, we're doing well. These machines, as you guys point out, are at least a decade old, and many are using technology even older than that. So is it time to replace them?
It is time to replace them. A lot of them go back to 2002. One of the original designers compared it to using an iPhone 1 instead of an iPhone 10. They're just kind of out of date. They're a little slower than people are used to, but they're expensive to replace. So there's some sentiment in favor of replacing them, but so far there's not any money for that.
And that's the big deal. Congress helped buy these this original batch that we're using now, too.
Right.
Are these machines, though, actually changing votes? Is there a bug in the system?
If you go too quickly, you get your vote counted before all of the votes have kind of filtered down through the system. So they're urging people when they get to that last screen to wait, make sure all of their votes are registered before they push that cast ballot button.
And let's talk about the developments in the race for Speaker of the Texas House. John Zerwas from the Houston area, from Richmond, he dropped out. And now dozens of members are trying to recruit another Republican, also from the Houston area. Are we seeing a consensus finally form?
I don't know if we're seeing consensus. You know, Dennis Bonnen got into this race after a meeting of some of the Republicans on Sunday of last week. At the same time, John Zerwas got out and put himself into Dennis Bonnen's camp. But they haven't got 76 votes yet, and if you don't have 76 votes in the Texas House, you're not the Speaker yet. There's still a bunch of other candidates in this thing. We still haven't had the election to decide who all the voters are. There's a lot more plays left.
All right, Ross, thanks a lot. Back to you in just a moment. Tuesday's election seems to have overshadowed two acts of hate we saw last week. The mass shooting at the Pittsburgh synagogue and the FBI arresting the man suspected of mailing pipe bombs to prominent Democrats. This morning, our next contributor places blame on one person. Here's Ed Gray from the Commish radio show with My Voice, My Opinion.
President Trump, you can't yell fire after setting the fires that have consumed America. The hate that you give is all too real. This is no fake news, only real talk. American carnage is the dark side of our politics that has become inspirational. It has inspired the shooting of synagogues in Pittsburgh. It is the mailing of pipe bombs to political opponents. This is more than a response to a chant of lock her up. Meanwhile, in Dallas, the SMU Embry Human Rights Program celebrates the triumph of Spirits Awards. Those who fight against the unjust, global and local champions of human rights. We shall overcome the carnage that is today's America. Vote to end that carnage. Vote Tuesday. Vote Democratic. I'm Ed Gray, and this is my voice, my opinion.
Coming up, campaigns make their closing arguments. Two strategists in studio on messaging, mistakes, and more. And courts might soon face a simple question. If you are born in the United States, does that make you a citizen? Mark and Katie debated in Flashpoint. You're watching Inside Texas Politics on WFAA.
The state's top cop indicted.
Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton.
Top law enforcement officer has been jailed.
First-degree securities fraud.
3 felony charges.
Faces up to 99 years in prison.
Now being investigated for bribery and corruption.
If Ken Paxton can't follow the law, how can he enforce it? Justin Nelson was named one of the best lawyers in all of Texas. He teaches constitutional law. A check on power, not a rubber stamp. Justin Nelson for Attorney General.
They might ask how you did it. A holiday haul no one saw coming. When did you splurge for that? And that. You know Conn's Low Payment Finder helps find the lowest payment tailored to you. Whether you have good credit to no credit, Conn's Home Plus works with you to make it happen, so you can splurge on more big holiday deals with small holiday payments. You got this.
What can a PNC Bank high-yield savings account help you get? Extra days, filled with more joy than you could imagine. And nights you never want to end. It can help bring uncontrollable laughter and memories that last forever. At PNC Bank, it's easy to apply for a high-yield savings account, backed by over 160 years of trusted experience. PNC Bank, make today the day.
Spring is the most active time for tornadoes in North Texas, but we have a second round of severe weather possible each fall. This is caused by temperature swings between seasons.
The more you know about the weather, the better. WFAA Weather Minds, sponsored by TXU Energy.
TXU Energy Season Pass. Save 50% on your energy charges all winter and summer long, no matter how you use it.
Well, that's better. Now we can see everything.
TXU Energy for home and business.
Buying or selling a home? A realtor can make the process easier for you. Here's how. They have market knowledge, including recent sales prices, trends, and access to more listings. They have a fiduciary responsibility to protect the interests of their clients. And they utilize their expertise with contracts and negotiations by properly marketing a property and presenting compelling offers. The right realtor can make all the difference. Find yours at dfwrealestate.com and get your home search or sale started today.
I now understand why you're so frustrated. You don't know how to listen.
Oh, we listen. And we heard how Pete Sessions took over $10 million from Washington special interests and voted for the new tax law that gives nearly $1 trillion to the special interests. We heard that Pete Sessions voted to add nearly $2 trillion to the debt, and how they plan to pay for it by cutting Social Security and Medicare. Pete Sessions. He isn't listening to Texas. House Majority PAC's responsible for the content of this advertising.
Over the next 48 hours, expect to see a flood of campaign ads as candidates make their closing arguments. But let's talk about the messaging we're seeing right now and some mistakes already made. In studio, Democrat Matt Engel on the right there from the Lone Star Project, and Vinny Manchillo from Glass House Strategy with experience in political ads. Good to see you guys this morning.
Thanks, great to be here.
Let's start out with the one that we're all asking. Which candidates are in trouble? Vinny, you first.
I think it's a surprising list of candidates that are in trouble. I think Beto's in a little bit of trouble. I think he's not been able to produce that big turnout among the big audience that he thought was there. Other candidates, I think Matt Rinaldi's in trouble. I think Senator Don Huffines is in trouble. That's my kind of big list right now.
Beto's in trouble. Matt, what do you say to that?
Well, I'm thrilled. I don't think I've ever had that question asked at this point in the election and said there's no Democrat that's in trouble. The Democrats are in good shape, but I think that here Senator Connie Burton in Senate District 10 is in serious trouble, much more trouble than people seem to think. Also, I think Don Huffines is in trouble. I agree Matt Rinaldi is in trouble. I think that John Turner
in House District 114 is going to win, and that his opponent, Lisa Luby Ryan, I think is in serious trouble. And finally, I think that Dallas DA Faith Johnson is in serious trouble.
Do you see a blue wave coming here?
I really don't. I did maybe a couple of months ago, but I think now, thanks to Brett Kavanaugh, we've seen a lot of enthusiasm from the Republican side, and we're seeing that in the early voting numbers. We're seeing big early voting numbers everywhere in the state, including some Republican strongholds.
Let's talk about messaging for a moment. Republican DA Faith Johnson, you just mentioned a moment ago, Matt, she has an ad on TV right now which clearly mischaracterizes her Democratic opponent, John Creuzot, and things that he did when he was a presiding judge in Dallas County. She defends this ad, though. Good idea or bad idea?
Well, it's a terrible idea, but it shows that she does know she's in trouble, and so she's having to lash out at John Creuzot with a negative ad and a false ad. Faith's big problem is that she is a lifelong Republican who has embraced the Cruz agenda, embraced the Trump agenda, and so that's just not going to sell in Dallas County.
And Vinny, you have a lot of experience in ads. You've seen this ad. What do you think?
I think it's a bruiser. I think it's a great ad. And I think sometimes when women are running for office, you know, they don't get enough credit for being tough. So I think what it comes out of this, what you get out of this ad is that Faith Johnson is tough and she's willing to take the fight to it.
And go ahead.
It's great to be tough, but you've got to be honest. It's a dishonest ad. Dishonest ads get you in trouble. That's why she's in trouble.
And 48 hours out from the election now, we have the opportunity to look back and see who made mistakes. Mistakes made so far. What do you think?
I think what's in the United States Senate race, I think some of the mistakes that are made are the ads that are running. They're running a lot of attack ads to try to move voters. There's no undecided voters in the race. I wish their messaging was all about turnout and not about attacks. That's a big mistake.
Matt, what do you think?
I think that Cruz made a huge mistake from the beginning in being so negative and embracing Donald Trump. This is a guy who was personally ridiculed by Trump, and instead he embraced him. He really, you know, he traded in his dignity for a belly rub, and I think that that has hurt him more than anything else.
45 seconds left here. I'm just curious, do you guys think that this midterm election, the voter turnout we've seen so far, has that fundamentally changed anything? Any last word?
We don't really know. It's fundamentally changed the math in that it's screwed up all the math. We don't really know who's coming. So that's going to be, will this affect the next cycle? I don't know. Maybe we're back to normal.
Will it affect the next cycle?
It definitely will, because now we've got a lot of non-presidential data on voters that usually don't vote in non-presidential years. I think it's a very, very positive development. Whether you're a Democrat or whether you're a Republican, whether you're an independent, the fact that so many people are participating in this election is really good. It's good for democracy. It's good for Texas. And so I think that people should be very happy with what's going on, and I encourage everybody, join the party. Go out there and vote.
Good deal. Matt Engel, Vinny Manchillo, thank you guys very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now to that simple question federal courts might soon face. If you're born in the United States, does that make you a citizen? It did spark the next debate you're about to see in Flashpoint. From the right, Mark Davis of 660 AM The Answer. And from the left, author and producer, Katie Sherritt.
Thank you, Jason. Good Sunday morning, everybody. Katie and I are here, and the election is next week. And so since it's become a big part of the election, let's do some birthright citizenship, something that has annoyed me for years because it's not in the Constitution. There's no court ruling.
It is in the Constitution.
There's no, it's, you know what is?
14th Amendment.
Do you know what is in the Constitution, that 14th Amendment? Subject to the jurisdiction thereof, which is a qualifier, meaning not owing allegiance to any other country, not an illegal alien.
I think
that's what the people.
Settled law.
No, but it's not.
This is settled
it's
law.
The people settled it who wrote it. In the 1860s, the people arguing it made clear. They made it clear. They made it clear.
Another piece of evidence of President Trump's disregard for the rule of law.
Well, I believe this for 30 years.
Disregard for the Constitution and his desire to rile up his base before the election.
Well, I've been riled up about it for 30 years because I've always thought it was ridiculous, the notion of stepping onto American soil, having a baby.
30 other nations do this.
Not Canada being the only one that's developed and has a GDP higher than $50.
Oh my gosh! So now we're going to insult other countries too.
There's no other major powerful nation that does this because it's horribly unwise.
It is a major driver of American greatness. This ability for immigrants to come here and become part of us.
Of course they can do that.
Their talents and their gifts. And they enrich us incredibly.
I know they do.
But I just think this is another example of Lion Donald trying to rile people up, spread hate and divisiveness. And I think it's very, very sad.
Well, I don't hate anybody. I just love the idea of having people enter the country with a system that makes sense rather than just step over, give birth, instant citizenship.
It's made sense for 200 years and worked very, very well, I think. think.
From the right, Mark Davis, 660 AM, The Answer.
And from the left, Katie Sherrod.
48 hours now from the election. Will Tuesday night be a long night? Ross, Bud, and Bernadine are here when we return with predictions on what we might see.
No. Dad's an architect. Mom rushes to pack lunches. The kids are bright, wisecracking teens. They appear to be a typical American family. Next to Normal at Casa Mañana, November 3rd through 11th. Tickets at casamañana.org.
Black Friday is back at Nebraska Furniture Mart, starting with a Black Friday sneak peek.
Mind-blowing savings on what you want.
With 24-month financing.
Store-wide.
Welcome real savings.
Welcome to Black Friday.
The Black Friday sneak peek, now at Nebraska Furniture Mart.
Who knew?
Yeah. So you're with the UPS store?
Yes. In fact, we printed these right here.
Oh, I thought you guys just did shipping.
No, we do printing, packing, faxing, notarizing, shredding, mailboxing, copying, taping, binding, consulting, designing, returning, storing, grading. Oh, and of course, shipping.
So you're into shipping?
We also do printing, packing, faxing.
Come into the UPS store today for everything your small business needs. And of course, shipping.
Nancy Pelosi wants back in charge. Her agenda, forcing your family into government-run health care. Single payer.
Well, I want a single payer. I mean, I wanted I love a single payer, but...
Guess who else wants government-run health care? Colin Allred.
I would support, a single payer system.
Colin Allred and Pelosi would kick you off your good employer health care. They'd make your private insurance illegal. Colin Allred is all wrong for Texas.
I'm Pete Sessions, and I approve this message.
Tis the season for sibling rivalry, and these siblings have been very good. Choose your favorite Cadillac SUV during our season's best winter sales event. Get this low mileage lease on this 2019 Cadillac XT5 from around $399 per month. These offers end soon.
Okay, let's say you're looking for a loan, but the bank isn't an option, and you really hate to settle for one of those payday loans. You need a better option. And here it is, introducing Avio Credit, an easy process that offers you personal loans up to $5,000. And Avio Credit gives you more flexibility. Make regular payments or pay it off early. You're in control. Pick the loan options that work for you and apply today at Avio Credit. Climb higher with Avio Credit.
Here's what I like about Texas. DQ Texas T-Brand Tacos. 3 crispy tacos packed with seasoned beef and fresh toppings, plus a drink for just $4.99.
DQ, that's what I like about Texas. No.
It won the Pulitzer. It won the Tonys. It will win your heart. The emotional powerhouse Next to Normal at Casa Mañana, November 3rd through 11th. Tickets at casamañana.org.
This is Inside Texas Politics with Jason Whiteley on WFAA.
It is time now for Reporters Roundtable to put the headlines in perspective. Ross, Bud, and Bernadine, Channel 8's political producer, are here each week as always. Ross, to start with you. 48 hours out from the election, do you expect this to be a close race between Beto and Cruz?
I do. I think the high turnout is probably an indication that voters on both sides are really excited about this thing. All of the polls have been in low single digits. I don't expect the race to be any different from that.
And Bud, that's just the opposite of what R.G. Ratcliffe from the Texas Monthly mentioned the other day.
He says that Beto's down in Wendy Davis territory, but I think it all depends on Election Day. Democrats used to always be the party that brought in all the votes on Election Day. The Republicans have a tremendous early vote. The Democrats had an early surge, but it kind of tailed off. It's all a matter of Election Day now.
And Bernadine, it seems like it's all about millennials and new voters that Beto is really trying to reach.
Well, and then the numbers show that they have increased. I think the question is, have they increased enough? But also, Beto is depending upon the independent vote as well, because it shows that a number of them are going his way. But I think that is going to really depend on Election Day and getting their supporters to the polls, which is what we've said all along.
And Ross, how do you read this early turnout so far in this race?
We could have expected a normal early turnout would have been about 3.2 million votes. It's over 4 million. It's a lot of people. And I think it means that the turnout will probably, not certainly, but probably be bigger for this election.
And Bud, I'm curious as well, too. I mean, the closing arguments we're seeing right now, too, and we'll see tomorrow, we'll see on Tuesday. Who's making the best one? Is one better than the other?
We're still waiting to see if Beto O'Rourke has any kind of an election day kick that criticizes Cruz. You know, Cruz is in the 50% range. He has to take voters away from Ted Cruz. He hasn't done that.
And that's the big question, Bernadine, as well, too. I see you have your eyebrows furrowed there as you listen to Bud.
No, I just keep saying it's going to boil down to who gets their supporters to the poll. But also, now keep in mind, during the primary, the Democrats won during the early voting, but the Republicans came up with over 500,000 on Election Day. So the Democrats do have a challenge.
And Bud, let's switch topics for a moment and talk about the complaints of voter suppression. Illegal voting. Is it worse on one side or the other? Are these legit complaints?
Well, if this is a close election, if the Democrats come within 47, 48%, then you'll see them continue and say that it was voter suppression that kept them from winning in Texas. You know, there were some polling places moved. There's always problems with the machines. It's not like it is in other states.
And Ross, you and I talked about the machines earlier. Is this an argument Democrats might have if this is a close race in the Senate race?
Well, I think those are arguments if it's a close race, but it has to be a really close race for those arguments to pertain. I mean, you get into questioned votes and things like that only when the results are tight.
Jason, as you heard on the other side, the Republicans will claim illegal voting and voter harvesting, too.
Well, and then they do that every election. The Democrats complain about suppression, and the Republicans complain about fraudulent voting.
Yeah, illegal voting. And final moments here, too, Ross, I'm curious, what other statewide offices that Republicans hold, since they hold them all, what other statewide office might be in play right now? Final 30 seconds here.
Well, the polls don't have any of them close. The closest of the bunch is probably the race for Attorney General. Ken Paxton defending, Justin Nelson, the Democrat, challenging. But really, those races look like they're all in double digits, at least according to the polling.
And we'll see what happens 48 hours from now. Thank you guys very much. We appreciate it. And thank you for watching as well. ABC's This Week begins in just a moment right here on Channel 8. We'll see you next Sunday, and we'll also see you on Election Night on Channel 8 and WFAA.com. Hope you have a good week.